Todd, Dr. Phil.
Hi, I'm Todd.
Next thing you know, I'm being carried onto the stage because I can barely walk.
Here we go. How drunk do you think you are right now?
Welcome back to my channel. Thank you all so much for joining me today. Please stay tuned because today we're going to be talking Dr. Phil, and we will be finding out about the abuse and murder at the Turnabout Ranch where Dr. Phil sends his candidates, his young vulnerable teens, allegations of false imprisonment, supplying alcohol and drugs to an actual addict, taking advantage of the vulnerable people for entertainment purposes, and last but not least, the sexual abuse allegations against Dr. Phil, which have gone largely hidden and forgotten. Dr. Phil is a very popular TV show personality based in California. He is almost universally loved for his no-nonsense treatment of those who need help, from wayward teens to the biggest of celebrities. So much loved, in fact, that people wouldn't think twice about jumping on the show even in their greatest moments of distress, as shown by Gabby Petito's parents, who accepted grief counselling in what is essentially an entertainment show.
I've introduced the audience to Joe, to you, and Tara. You're Gabby's biological father, and you're the stepmother.
But what if I told you things were not quite as they seemed with the TV doctor, not a doctor? It probably will come as no surprise when I say that Dr. Phil isn't a licensed practitioner. Indeed, he is qualified with a doctorate in psychology, but he voluntarily gave up his license to practice medicine in 2006. So in essence, he is not qualified to give the advice that he's giving out. It's not medical advice. Really, they should be making that known on the show. Okay, so the fact that Dr. Phil isn't an actual real doctor may well not be enough to convince the average American that Dr. Phil should not be trusted. But what if I told you that he is sending young, vulnerable teens to a camp which has a history of sexual abuse and even murder? When 17-year-old Hannah Archuleta appeared on the show, she was sent off to Dr. Phil's treatment of choice at Turnabout Ranch, which treats and deals with a range of troubled teens. However, while she was there, Hannah was allegedly subjected to sexual abuse on 2 separate occasions by a male worker. According to the lawsuit, Hannah and her parents filed against the show. Hannah reported the second incident to officials at the ranch. The staff didn't address the issue and instead retaliated against Hannah, the suit stated. The punishment included forcing Hannah to pick up manure for hours, sit at a desk facing a wall for hours, be ordered on forced walks for up to 6 hours a day, and sleep on a wooden plank with no pillows and deny her the bathroom. Hannah wrote to her parents about the treatment and they removed her from the facility. The family also reported the incidents to the police. Hannah's parents claim they were pressured into agreeing to send their daughter to the ranch and were not told of the prior allegations of abuse, torture, and even murder. That's right, murder. In 2016, Turnabout Ranch hit the headlines when a worker was brutally killed by a troubled teen. Now, just to make you aware, this was not a referral from Dr. Phil. This happened separate of that, but still, it's something that he's referring people to go and stay at when these incidents have happened. Despite Dr. Phil being aware of this past, he continued to refer teens there, possibly something to do with the referral fees they receive for doing so. That is a possibility. Aside from treating troubled teens, Dr. Phil is renowned for helping with addictions, sending sufferers to rehab, etc. But what if I told you they not only provide alcohol to alcoholics, but also drugs? When alcoholic Todd Herzog went onto the show, he was at his lowest ebb. Todd was literally dragged onto the stage as he was so out of it. Quite how the show was ever allowed by the production team to be recorded, let alone how the show ever passed American TV standards to be shown on national television, I'll never know. However, it was later claimed by Todd that when he arrived at the studios, he was completely sober. He claims that a bottle of vodka was left in the dressing room before the show, which he drank the entirety of. Before he went on, he was given a Xanax to calm his nerves. Now, if you don't know what Xanax is, it's an extremely strong drug which should not be mixed with alcohol. So the fact that they gave him a Xanax after he drank a full bottle of vodka absolutely blows my mind and makes me so angry.
I show up to the studios and I'm sober. I'm hurting a lot and I'm shaking. My dad was there and I went and talked to him in his dressing room and I was completely sober. And then they pull me into my dressing room and there was 2 liters of vodka and like some Red Bulls and orange juice and stuff like that. You know, being unsupervised by my parents, I drank the entire bottle.
See, I can see this being true because realistically, how would he turn up to the studios drunk and be allowed in if he turned up sober and he ended up being drunk on stage? Then somewhere in between times he must have had the drink. So I see this being a truthful statement.
And then at some point somebody gave me a Xanax. They said, this will calm your nerves. And so I had been drinking and took a Xanax, which I've never taken Xanax before in my life. And I know that can be a deadly combination, so why it was given to me, I don't know.
Todd, Dr. Phil.
Hi, I'm Todd.
Next thing you know, I'm being carried onto the stage because I can barely walk.
How drunk do you think you are right now?
An entire bottle of vodka.
Keep going. 0.263. What's going to happen to you if you keep drinking like you're drinking?
I'm gonna die.
And my dad was furious because he had just seen me sober like an hour and a half before.
And his dad had just seen him sober. So his dad can corroborate exactly what he is saying right now.
Do you know what it's going to do to your mother if she has to bury her boy?
Of course I do.
Why are you doing this to yourself?
I get that it's a television show and that they want to show the pain that I'm in. However, what would have happened if I died there, you know?
The Dr. Phil show vehemently denies the allegations and say that they do not ply their guests with alcohol or drugs, which I'm sure that is what they like to tell people. But if this actually did happen, and to be honest with you, it is some very serious shit, because I thought before I even heard the other side of it, when I saw the actual clips of him being dragged onto the show, I was in sheer disbelief that that was even allowed to happen. You could not allow your guests in any talk show anywhere to be that drunk that he literally cannot stand up or sit up straight. It just blows my mind that so the fact that they're saying that they don't allow it, and they have allowed him to at least be that paralytic, it just begs the question, did they actually give him the drugs and alcohol? Given all these very serious incidents, how is Dr. Phil the most lauded after personality on television? Perhaps these are isolated scandals? Maybe America doesn't believe it? But what if I threw into the mix an allegation of mental and physical torment? When Shirley Dieu appeared on the show in 2007, she alleges in a lawsuit against Dr. Phil and CBS television that she was held captive and forced to look at a naked man whilst under their care. She was staying in the Dr. Phil house as part of treatment, aftercare, if you will. The lawsuit stated, on the third night at the Dr. Phil house, the participants were told they were going to have a special dinner guest. Later that evening, McGraw appeared on the television monitor and announced, "Here's your dinner guest." The male dinner guest was at the front door, fully naked, exposing his genital area. Plaintiffs were shocked and horrified. Plaintiffs ran into a room and shut and locked the door. Dieu heard the crew and others laughing at them. They suffered emotional damages, and Dieu also suffered physical injury. Plaintiffs insisted on leaving, but defendants were uncooperative in allowing them to do so. Plaintiffs ultimately were allowed to leave the Dr. Phil house. Plaintiffs allege various emotional and physical injuries from the experience. Again, if this is true, then mind absolutely blown. Imagine being a woman who is under the care of a psychologist, in quotation marks, because he's not got his license anymore, pretending to be a psychologist, should I say, which, to be honest, really should fall under some sort of criminal investigation, but anyway, it's another matter. He takes them, puts them in a house, which is not actually a house, it is a house on a stage. It is a pretend mock house, and he locks them in there, and he gets them to look at a naked man for whatever reason that is a thing, apparently. So I cannot imagine how terrible that would have been for those women in that house. In addition to the numerous scandals surrounding the Dr. Phil show, millions tune in every episode to see Phil interrogate, expose, and take advantage of emotionally or mentally unstable participants, such as the Dina Lohan situation.
Can we stop for a minute? I don't want to be okay. But,
Imagine taking advantage of a clearly vulnerable lady who is going through a lot of turmoil within her family, and is clearly upset. She's mentally unstable, and imagine taking advantage of that for a TV show. That's just wrong. Maybe it's just me, but I feel like it's wrong. And then the incident with Jael Strauss, who was a former top model contestant, and she ended up being an alcoholic, and another one that that they took advantage of because it made good TV.
You're doing drugs, you're living in crappy hotels, you're stripping in some sleazeball joint.
I don't want everybody to know all that.
Well, I didn't.
Why is it everybody's business?
I didn't bring it up until you lied. If you had just said yes, then we'd have gone on and talked about something else.
Now, if you could see beyond everything the show stands for, including making entertainment out of serious mental health problems, what if we were to take into account the show spending $30,000 to bail out of jail a criminal so they had first dibs on them for the show? When Mercedes Nichols was behind bars for a vicious beating of a teen and videotaping it for her entertainment, she was touted by the producers of Dr. Phil for an episode. They paid the $30,000 to bail her out of jail. $30,000 they paid just to get her out so she could go on the show. How insane is that to even think about? That is ridiculous. However, after backlash, the episode was scrapped and never produced. This is the statement that they put out, but I'm calling BS on it. We have helped guests and potential guests in the past when they need financial assistance to come on the show, assisting with clothing allowance, lost wages, accommodations, and travel and necessities. In this case, certain staff members went beyond our guidelines, re the bail being paid. These staff members have been spoken to and our policies reiterated. In addition, we have decided not to go forward with the story as our guidelines have been compromised. I'm absolutely certain that somebody decided to use $30,000 of petty cash in the Dr. Phil studios to pay for somebody's bail without anybody noticing. I'm saying that didn't happen, okay? They got the backlash, they decided to go against it because it wasn't worth it. And that's it. Have you seen or heard it all yet? Maybe all this wasn't enough to convince you, but what if I told you that Dr. Phil paid, yes, paid for a body to be exhumed so that it could have a second autopsy? When Rebecca Zahau was found hanged in her boyfriend's apartment, the death was ruled a suicide. However, her family had suspected foul play was at hand. Dr. Phil actually paid for the body to be exhumed, had an autopsy carried out, and revealed the results to her family in the show. Rebecca Zahau's body is going to be exhumed and Dr. Phil is paying for the procedure, RadarOnline.com has exclusively learned. Rebecca's tragic death was ruled a suicide after her body was found hanged with her hands and feet bound at her billionaire boyfriend Jonah Shacknell's mansion in San Diego. Now, Dr. Phil's team and his lawyers have since refuted the fact that they were directly paying for the exhumation of the body. However, they did confirm that they would be donating to the fund set up by the family to pay for the exhumation. So, indirectly, yes, they were essentially paying for the exhumation of the body, which is insane in itself, but not content with just that, but they revealed the autopsy results to the family on the show.
For reopening this investigation and moving forward with all due effort to try to determine what's happened.
Yes, I lean very strongly toward it being a homicide.
She shouldn't be dead. She should be here with us.
Ah yes, pure entertainment TV. Now, given all these scandals and all the highly dubious on-air practices, it truly is a wonder why Dr. Phil McGraw still has a platform and is entrusted to help anyone. Maybe you could put the allegations down to just being false, and your morals allow for the entertainment of people's health problems. But what if I told you that Dr. Phil should not have been given the platform before any of this even started? Remember I mentioned Dr. Phil gave up his license to practice medicine back in 2006? Well, before then he was actually a practicing doctor in the state of Texas only. So he's never been a licensed doctor in California, where his show is based. So even when he had his license, he was never licensed to give medical advice on the show, period. Now rewind all the way back to 1984, and Dr. Philip McGraw was an ordinary doctor with actual patients. That is, until he crossed every boundary imaginable. When Sarah Morrison was under the care of McGraw for clinical depression, Sarah could have had no idea that it was a life-changing decision. She said, "Phil was extremely insistent that I call him all the time, and he would call me. He wanted to see me 3 or 4 times a week as a patient." Now obviously that's red flags immediately. I don't know about 1984, but it certainly would be now. She went on to describe in detail how Dr. Phil treated her. "He'd be running his hand up and down the inside of my thigh all the way up to my panties. He'd put his hands between my legs. He'd reach my blouse and touch my breasts. He pulled my breasts out of my bra and kissed them." And this is the Dr. Phil that everybody knows and loves from the TV show, who back in the day, this is what he did. And I personally find it absolutely unbelievable that he was given the platform he has today to give advice to anybody, and the fact that he is loved by everybody, and this is the sort of thing that he's done. After police were called and a full investigation, it seemed there was not enough evidence to take action. So obviously this is an allegation, but the board were concerned that they put measures in place to stop him from doing it again. The Texas State Board of Examiners of Psychologists took measures which would eventually put McGraw out of business. He was ordered to have a second therapist present during sessions, for which he would have to fit the full costs of. So he would have to pay the costs of the second therapist who was there to monitor him. Less than a year later, he gave up practicing. That is until a certain Oprah Winfrey gave him a slot on her own TV show. And the rest, as they say, is history. Still, despite all the evidence, whether real or circumstantial, Dr. Phil not only is a highly popular TV personality and respected in his field of TV psychiatry, but he is raking it in up to $95 million per year just in the show alone, notwithstanding all the other side hustles he has on the go. And to America's embarrassment and shame, in 2020, Dr. Phil was given his very own star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame. This is how much he is respected throughout his profession. But the question is, should he be respected so much that he's given one of those stars? Now, I know you could be thinking, well, there's so much here. Maybe it's not all true. Maybe it's made up. Maybe it's made up by fame-hungry people. But a lot of these cases, they were actual lawsuits. It weren't just allegations in newspapers. So they kind of did happen, or were alleged to have happened to an extent that they went to court over. But to give him the celebrity status that they are giving him is just insane to me, particularly off the back of a fairly unresolved sexual abuse allegation. Now, in the UK, we've had quite a lot of high-profile cases of celebrities who have taken advantage of their position, and just because they were once loved and once loved so much, it does not give them a free pass to act like this and do things like this. It does not give them a free pass, and it never should do. Again, reference in the UK, after the Jeremy Kyle incident, if you know what happened there, you know, he had his very own talk show, just like Dr. Phil, on the same level of lovingness. People loved him. Well, you either loved him or hated him. But he would take advantage of the vulnerable a lot, and he ended up running the show down because somebody who was on the show a few days after he appeared on the Jeremy Kyle show, he took his own life. The show was cancelled, it's never been back, and it's since come out so many revelations about it. Maybe I'll do a video on it because it's a very interesting subject, and it gives an insight into why these reality type TV shows are really bad. They're done for our entertainment, but in reality it's not entertainment, it's other people's lives. So after Jeremy Kyle incident, I figured people had wised up to this sort of thing, but it seems not. Particularly in America, it is huge business. There are a number of talk show hosts who delve into people's lives, and it is just wrong, in my opinion. People's lives are not entertainment, and I feel like this should be a more of a national topic. So thank you all so much for watching. Please comment your opinions about this down below. There's so much to comment on here. Comment everything you want to comment down below. I'd love to hear your opinions on this. Do you watch Dr. Phil? Did you like him? Did you used to like him? Do you even know who he is? I just love to know your opinions. Thank you so much for watching. Please remember to give this video a massive thumbs up and subscribe if you're new, because we are here every other day with some amazing topics. We've got some brilliant true crime videos coming up as well, which I really want you to stick around for, because I love true crime, and lots of you do too. I know you do. And if you don't, I will make it so that you do. Thank you so much, and I'll see you again soon in another video. Take care, and bye bye.